would have left in. So obviously there was some give and take on that, but the larger numbers have been locked for quite some time, and the president obviously was in meetings on some of this back and forth.
And as the president goes to New Hampshire tomorrow, what's the real goal there? There's still a lot of frustration about the pace of job creation.
Sure.
What does the president hope to accomplish?
Well, the president will have a town hall meeting, but outline a proposal that he talked about in the State of the Union to increase small business lending through community banks. That will be specifically what he talks about. Look, I think in many ways the president gets letters from, we've heard from small businesses across the country that, bless you, that want to expand, that need a loan to make payroll. We want to ensure that for those that want to add jobs, for those that want to start a small business, that they have the capital to do so. Chip.
Following up on the commission, can you understand, though, the skepticism of people who look at this budget and say there really isn't a lot of specific cutting going on here? We're going to rely on this blue ribbon panel down the road, and don't you think the average American
Chip,
is going to say you're kicking the can down the road here?
Chip, I think if you look at what the budget does over the next several years in going back down to a percent of GDP, you'll understand that these are not decisions that are not being made. Secondly,
But you are relying very heavily on what this panel would do in order
no,
to
I
bring
don't think
deficits
it's
back.
relying very heavily, but I think it's, is there any doubt that we're going to need consensus to make some important changes? The answer to that quite clearly is yes.
And following up on Jake's question, the idea that, I mean, you were certainly willing to have Democrats alone, or pick off a Republican if you needed one, push through on something as important as health care reform. Why not use your domination of the elected government
Well, Chip,
to
again,
push through
I mean, I think I answered this with
deficits,
Jake.
deficit cutting?
Well, again, we took on the cost of health care, which is a big driver in our federal budget deficit over the past year in health care reform. We've taken on some of those fights. But, Chip, there's no doubt that we're not going to get all the way that we need to unless or until we get two parties working together as the American people envision their government working. I don't think it's, right now there seems to be some blowback on whether or not the other side will even appoint members to a commission. I think if you're serious about talking about deficit reduction, appointing members, quite frankly, is the least you can do.
I mean, why would they appoint, if they voted it down in Congress, why would you think they even might appoint members to a commission?
Why wouldn't they?
They already voted against it.
Well, no, 53 people voted for it.
You know that the key Republicans are not for it.
Then I guess they'll get to explain to the American people
Well, then
what
you're
they're
just
going to
playing
do.
politics. You're not.
No.
If you're saying we know we're not going to get it because the
We're appointing
Republicans
members.
aren't going to.
No.
What good is it if they
Let's
don't-
take
if they
a
don't?
walk a bit for a second on playing politics. Okay, there's a proposal, one by a Republican and a Democrat, to set up a commission. Let me just do this,
Mm-hmm.
right? It needed 60 votes. It got 53. 7 people that said they supported it in December voted against it. Now, I'll let your definition of whether or not that's playing politics, we'll just leave that aside. If you can't set this up legislatively, then the president will through executive order. And he'll appoint members on his side on this commission. Now, if you won't appoint members, I'll leave that aside and whether you think that's playing politics with the issue. But at some point, Chip, you have to get in the game. At some point, you have to have a series of ideas on how to do this. This is, regardless of who wins elections, everybody that's sworn into Congress and everybody that serves in the executive branch has an obligation to solve problems and make it work for the American people. Not supporting something that you did 2 months ago or a month ago, not appointing members simply out of obstinance, if that's not playing political games, then I don't know what the definition chip would look like.
I think you're right, it is. But aren't you doing the same thing by then harping on it rather than moving on to something that you could actually try to pass legislatively?
The president, we tried to pass it legislatively. The president lent his support to what Democrats and Republicans.
Well, cuts, not the commission. If
We
the commission's
have-
not going to work,
We
why not
outlined
just
in the
move
budget
on?
some specific cuts, and I think if you look at over the course of the next several years, look, we didn't get into this budget problem and deficits overnight. If you look at the graph of where budget deficits go over the next 3 or 4 years, you'll see that on a decidedly downward trajectory. To get the rest of the way, the president had first asked Congress to pass a legislative commission, despite getting 53 votes and having 7 people that supported a month ago walk away. The president's going to do this through executive committee in hopes that the Republicans will take part in the exercise of governing.
Two quick questions. Have you ruled out Abdul Muttalib being treated as an enemy combatant?
Look, I want to say, I'll say this. Having been in a series of meetings about this over the past many days, decisions that are being reported as having been made have not been made. There's no doubt that a city like New York has serious security and logistical concerns about a trial, and those can, should, and will be taken into account. The president, Chuck, believes that the forum that the Attorney General decided that these trials be held in are the best way to deal with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and others.
My question was about the Christmas bomber, Abdul Muttalib. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, you
Have we ruled him out as?
as treating him as an enemy combatant.
Well-
because it's possible you could still do that. It's been done with previous.
That certainly
terror
was
suspects.
done with Jose Padilla and Amari were indicted, transferred, and indicted back. Look, I think that very experienced interrogators at the FBI made decisions about interrogation, and the Department of Justice made determinations to seek an indictment, and the president believes that's the appropriate place.
So that means the administration is satisfied there's no more intelligence to be gained from Abdul Muttalib?
No, the White House is satisfied that the process of gaining that intelligence is working.
And was the CIA, I mean, there was a report this morning, I think it was in the LA Times, was the CIA and the DNI asked for their input on the decision before he was indicted, or was it just?
Let me say this, and I want to be clear on this. When, I forget the exact day, but I can look it up. When the president held his Situation Room meeting to go over the failures of the Christmas Day bombing, I believe this was on a Tuesday because we then. Well, this
when
was,
he came back.
This was right.
The big meeting when he came back.
I think it must have been the 5th was on a Tuesday. In that meeting were the president, the vice president, the attorney general, the secretary of defense, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, the director of national intelligence, the director of the CIA. I don't know who else I've forgotten. Whoever that roster was, right, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. All those people were present in a meeting where the attorney general said that in the next day, Mr. Abdul Muttalib would be indicted for his crimes.
Are you saying there was no debate around that table?
I will say that anybody that wanted or needed to register their concern, the notion that somehow a forum wasn't readily available to register anybody's concern, doesn't certainly comport with the way I understand events, having been in the room, watching those present have an opportunity to ask questions about those procedures.
Did the President and First Lady vote tomorrow?
They, I believe, both voted by absentee ballot. Yes.
Just to go back to your initial response to Chuck's question, we talked about New York. Are you saying that there has been no decision yet, no
I am.
formal decision
I am.
to take it out of New York?
I am.
Now, on this New Hampshire trip tomorrow, along with the community bank theme, to what extent is this a take the budget on the road event?
Well, look, I think obviously there'll be certain questions on it and have an opportunity to talk about it. Our focus tomorrow is the proposal the president will talk specifically about at the town hall is the effort for increased lending through community banks directly to small businesses.
And going back to the Friday event with the Republicans, is there any follow-up to that? Do you think he'll talk to Senate